Welcome back to the second hour of the programme. We have another packed second hour coming up. We're going to be talking about Irish Water. We're going to be talking to Cathy Desmond, music teacher from the Tramore Ukelele group. Do you love the ukulele? Do you want to know how to play it? Or is it one of those things that maybe it might just annoy you a little bit? No, it doesn't. Distributing face masks. We're going to talk to John Hayes from Ferrybank Community Group. And I have an interview coming up in a minute with Michael Thompson about funerals. A very important interview in terms of the issues that have faced funeral directors and also people mourning their loved ones. How have they managed in the past 8 weeks? Some texts coming in. HICWA have stated in the Irish Examiner there's no evidence that children substantiate in the spread of coronavirus. So why can't grandparents that have no underlying conditions mind their grandchildren? There are a lot of healthy older people. Joan has texted in, I work in childcare in the baby room under 1. There is no way we can social distance. What do we do? I truly miss my babies. They become part of our lives. Can you please say happy birthday to a dear and wonderful father, Richard Egan from Laurel Park in Cherrymount, whose birthday is today. Have a lovely birthday from your son, Robert. Happy birthday to Brian Cosgrave in Abbeyside as well, from Martina, Josh, Ryan, or is it Ryan and Chloe. Thank you for that lovely interview with probably the best correspondent on radio and newspaper reporting. That is from Jimmy. That's regarding the Sean O'Rourke police. Irish Water. It rains here 11 months of the year and we have a couple of fine weeks and we have to conserve water. What a joke. What chance of WR doing something about Mary Butler and Matt Shanahan and the voting regarding David Cullinan not getting the chair of the COVID panel? Look at doing something on this. It's something we will come back to when we are interviewing those particular politicians on that. And a person asked about RTE retiring at 65. Has Sean any views on that? I didn't get to that, unfortunately. Number of people phoned in to 051 846 123. That was a lovely interview with Sean O'Rourke, and the tea cosy postcard was indeed a postcard of Dungarvan. A woman has phoned in to say, how can childcare workers go back to work if they get, or how would they get, 3 to 4 year olds to stay 2 metres apart? It would be almost impossible. A caller phoned in to say his wife has an underlying health condition and works in childcare. How is she expected to return to work? Not clear what's going to happen to people like her. And another woman phoned in regarding the insurance company, Liberty Insurance, about a COVID refund that was mentioned some weeks ago. She'd paid almost €1,000 for the insurance policy and her rebate would be €24. But if she didn't claim through the online form within a certain amount of time, it would automatically go to charity. That's an interesting one. People still texting in about diesel prices. Tesco says this person, an email in to Deise today at WLRFM.com, says Tesco constantly advertise that every little helps, but the price of their diesel at Ardkeen is 121.9, whereas Jones's oil on the Cork Road is 109.9, approximately 10% cheaper for the same product. Every other petrol station in Waterford has cheaper prices. Makes you think, doesn't it? You have to shop around, says this person. Now, anybody who's lost a loved one at any stage, it is a difficult time. Mourning is one of the, I suppose, rawest emotions, and then the community aspect of it and people wanting to pay their respects. Funeral directors around Waterford have played their part in keeping the COVID numbers in Waterford down. And you're going to hear that, and you're going to hear why, because people are asking, why is Waterford so good at keeping the numbers down? And one death is one too many. We know that only too well. Now, Michael Thompson is funeral director with Thompson's Funeral Home in Waterford City. I went over to him yesterday afternoon, again maintained the more than 2 metres distance with my extended interview stick to conduct this interview. We started outside and we're talking about conducting funerals during COVID and why Waterford has fared so well. So here is some of what Michael Thompson had to say. Michael, we're standing outside the sign. Robert Thompson, funeral directors, established
1786.
Survived what? 2 world wars, cholera,
typhus, Spanish flu. We're still here.
Tell me about the setup you have, the staff you have.
Business, well, as we said, 1786. The lane we're outside now, this was Harrington's lane, and it was actually Harrington was the original funeral directors here, and he died. His daughter, he had only one daughter, and she married Thompson. So that was back 220 something years ago. But this lane here where the funeral home is was Harrington's lane, because they originally had a business here. Like a sawmill, and then it became into the funeral directors then when Thompson's got involved.
So let's go inside. Okay, so you're going to talk about different things that you've been doing. Firstly, we step inside the reception area here. We've got the latex gloves.
Well, the signs are up, no mask cards. You're speaking of funerals, that's the first thing that went was mask cards. Pens couldn't be cleaned, books of condolence, it's online now. Your own WR, do it for the death notices and email them through to us. RIP, do them online, which is another way people are doing nowadays. Things have changed from that kind of way. We still put a bag there with mask cards, but they're very few and far between these days.
Okay, so we're going inside to what room now?
Just going into the main funeral home.
I can smell quite distinctive lacquers, paints. What have we done here? Everything looks like it's been cleaned and painted.
Yeah, when everything started off, we redid all our private and our public rooms. They were repainted, new carpets were done, and all the vinyls and everything were put to hospital standard, and all the non-public rooms where we work, everything was redone once this started.
Why did you do that? Why did you feel the need to do that?
It's a small business, and I like to keep an eye and see what's happening. I was supposed to go away on holiday myself, just before it happened with the kids, and I remember looking at it, following it, and seeing what was happening in other places, and seeing that it was going to become more serious, I think, than people thought at first. And especially because I was looking for myself, checking out, is it safe to go to, we were going to France, is it safe?
I've been at funerals here myself, and this room would be packed, sometimes to overflowing. A sign of an Irish funeral is the number of people you get at the funeral.
That's true.
And that community support. And particularly also in this part of the town we're in as well. But what happens here now for a funeral in the current situation?
Guidelines are constantly changing. At the moment, the HSE, the guidelines are 10 people at a funeral. And that's not only here, that's in the church, generally at the cemetery. But again, as you said, this part of the city and in the city, people want to show their support. People are still lining the street. They're still going out. We were there today, and a family all lined all the way down Cannon Street. Lovely to see. I mean, all the neighbours were out. Just so we passed by and stopped at the house because they couldn't go to the church. And a lady who'd be well known and involved in various charities and Lourdes. So for here, we had to take out some of the chairs. We have church benches, so it's not as easy. But what we're trying to do is, we're not allowed to advertise. You're not allowed to have gatherings. So what we're trying to do is give people times that they can allocate to their own relatives, because most people's brothers and sisters are cocooning. So they can't even come in. So you might have sons and daughters who come in and their husbands, but what about brothers and sisters who maybe, if their relative has been in a nursing home, they mightn't be able to go out for 8 weeks. It's one of the reasons Waterford is doing so well is the nursing homes have been so proactive. Day one they set up a WhatsApp group, all the ones in Waterford, they were in touch with us, with the funeral directors, the HSE, and everything is so safe. Like ourselves here, we spent over €5,000 on PPE gear. Day one, we were lucky we got it before the shortages.
I was just going to say, how did you get it? Like, did you?
We just got in a bit early, same as doing up the place. We were doing work here and doing bits and pieces, so we said we'd just cover ourselves in case it goes. Like, no one thought it would go the same way, but thankfully it hasn't. But we weren't going to be caught short. And the nursing homes did the same thing. I remember talking to one of them and they were giving advice saying where they were getting gloves or where they were getting masks. So they were ahead of it, and they've locked down and they've kept it so much out of Waterford, and that was our biggest worry here, always was.
I know you want to praise your fellow family and staff.
Well, it's hardest of all for us here. My own father, I'm working with, I'm 51 this year, I'm working with him since I was 16, and I haven't seen him. He's cocooning out in his own home. He works every day. He's I won't say semi-retired because he never will be, but he shows he likes to go and meet everyone and be seen. He hasn't been able to go. Mickey McGuinness, one of our drivers, he's the same. And then we have, the other guys, Noel and Jim. They're the only ones with me. We're the only ones who can work. We're the only ones who go out in the public. Everyone else is, Karen and Martina will be in the office. Karen meets all the families, makes the arrangements. Martina then is dealing with all the accounts. So everyone has managed to isolate into their own roles, and so they're not mixing and keeping everyone safe. Because our biggest worry always is that we would transfer it or we would bring it home.
And I suppose a very important thing, Michael, is that you do, what, is it 80% of the funerals around Waterford City County, South Kilkenny?
Large percentage, yeah.
How many funerals would that be a week or a month?
I wouldn't give out numbers.
But it's a phenomenal amount. So
we do quite a large number.
Yeah, and I know obviously if, God forbid, the COVID, if anybody had got the COVID within the family here or the business would transfer elsewhere. But your expertise and the people's connections with you would be very, very important. So you obviously said for the safety of the staff and the family to keep it out, and you've done that, and well done.
Yeah, we've done very well.
Yeah.
As I said, we did well redoing up all the rooms. I suppose some of the most important thing with families in that is the viewing, especially because we were saying in nursing homes people can't go into the hospital, you can't go in. So some people mightn't have seen their brothers and sisters in weeks. Everyone has managed to come in here and have their viewing and see their family member. So the important for that is the embalmer, John Flynn.
A very experienced man.
Very experienced, and he's doing nothing else. So he's not mixing with the public. So he has his own safe room,
Let's go in here. This is the embalming room now. So has the embalming process changed in the current situation?
You have to treat everyone. You have to be with respect and dignity. The most important thing here is for the living, for the family to see that's what we're here for them, to help them through it. And I think the fact of seeing someone and spending time with someone is important in that. It's important in the grieving process, always is. The same as the support of the neighbours. They're the type of things we're losing. For embalming, it's just dressing. It's getting people ready, having them looking their best as we can. And this room was, again, when this happened, this was done just after it started.
I can smell as you say, the coatings for the floor and all the work that's been done. And inside there where the coffins are, again, all the work has been done, yeah?
Well, that's it, because I suppose we're paranoid. We're terrified day one. What happens? Well, how can we protect everyone? How can we protect the families, more to the point? And every single person. I keep coming back to the older relatives, but that's the one people we have to worry about. They're the things that are important. It's the older generation that we have to protect. They're the people who are higher at risk. And we've been so lucky in Waterford and Ireland in general. But I think people, do they realise that it's still there? It's still very dangerous. I keep an eye around the world of what's going on. And there's even last Friday, there was an article on CNN about Albany in Georgia, in America. 2 funerals. They actually named the funeral, one of the people, this funeral, and the second funeral. And they traced 490 cases and 29 deaths back to. Wow. From 2 funerals. You can see it online. And
that's the other room here. This is some of the coffins are against the walls.
Yeah, you have so many people coming together.
Yeah. And that age bracket and that cohort is so vulnerable in some respects. Can I ask you, has there been any differences in terms of embalming or the time people would have? Is it still the same time? Like there was some talk, thankfully we haven't had COVID, too many COVID deaths here. 1 death is one too many. There's been very few. What happens if a person dies of COVID? Do they have to be buried straight away?
Yes, that's the HSE guidelines. The HSE, the government guidelines, there can't be any viewing, so they have to be coffined straight away and go straight for burial.
And no embalming?
No embalming, no treatment in any way, no viewing at all.
That's to protect yourselves. It's not in any way to be disrespectful to the poor person who's died. It's just, it's a horrendous situation.
Oh, it's horrible, and that's the thing we've been most frightened of. That's the thing we're most scared of is that people can't say goodbye. And thankfully we've been so lucky here. We've been so lucky. I can't, how well people have done in Waterford as a whole. The funeral directors with their WhatsApp group, the nursing homes in Waterford with their group, and everyone pooling information, staying together, and people don't see that behind the scenes. They read a lot of it, and a lot of it's negative about this happens, that happens, but it hasn't happened. And everyone, like us and like the lads working here, everyone takes a chance every day. We follow the guidelines, we keep our distance, but the main thing is to try and treat everyone with dignity, and the family have the same funeral. The difference is the people aren't physically there, but they're getting the support online. We're giving them opportunities maybe a bit longer to come in here and space it out. It's a bit like maybe, having to a queuing system, something like that. Say, look, if you come in 1/4 past, you come in 1/2 past, to give opportunities,
And I presume everybody's been understanding about that. They may be nervous, they may be worried, they may be sad, but they understand.
Yeah, I think a lot of people say, it must be so hard and, everyone being buried straight away. Because a lot of times the guidelines, they're saying not to announce anything. Don't announce the funeral. Don't give times and things like that. We're still saying, well, look, there's still a mass in Ballybricken. So there is still funerals. The church has been very good. There is still funerals. The priests are still going in. There's still a mass. There's still a burial. So the family themselves can be there. I know a lot they recommend, they say just memorial will follow later, everything private. But that makes it sound like people all have the COVID and they're being rushed away. They're not. The churches, the priests are meeting the families, either be it on the phone or on the morning with some distance. They're going through it. They're having their mass. Singers are coming out. They're having music, and some of them are lovely services.
Yeah.
Most of them are actually. It's just a lot of private
or on video, which is another nice way. So
there's those options now. Some of the churches already have it built into their church. Benilda's, St. Paul's, and their sister churches, they have it permanently on. Whereas some of the other churches, if a family want or have, the problem is sons and daughters away, who could be in Holland, Hong Kong, or even in England. They're not coming home from the UK. They can't get home. They have to isolate for 2 weeks.
Again, without revealing any personal stories, has there been any moments of gravitas, any moments that have really typified the last 8 weeks? I can hear the emotion in your voice. It's been difficult for you, I'm sure.
It is very hard. It's hard talking about it. I don't like talking.
I know, and you're only doing your job as well.
We're just trying to do the best. I mean, the last few funerals, I suppose, even this week, seeing the likes of that family today and all the neighbours lined up, going some of the country areas, some of the houses we've been to, we've because the family can't come in here, we've gone out to maybe pulled in out on the road, and next thing as we left the house, all the neighbours were up, came to the local crossroads, all the neighbours and friends were there, clapping as you pass. Small things like that. Turning up at the cemetery, people out on the road, just to see the person coming in, giving them that much time and, coming out of their houses. Simple things. That shows. And I mean, we're great for funerals in Waterford. We're great for the session afterwards. But one thing we are great is, even in this circumstances, they're fantastic at showing support. They really are, and they'll find a way. They'll find a way. They'll go walk on the street. They'll be outside the church when we arrive. They'll disappear. Another group of people will be there when we come out, or on the roads. And I mean, it's fantastic. The support people are getting.
And we've done a few pieces with priests and also with the gentlemen digging the graves up at Ballinasha, and everybody has a part to play in it. And that difficulty of that spacing, even going into the grave, even the coffin going down.
It makes no difference.
Yeah.
It makes no difference. There's no point saying nothing changes from that point of view. The family are always going to be as upset. It's always going to be that hard when the coffin is lowered in the grave and it's covered over. See, that hasn't changed. All this changes the way people are talking about it. The mass is still there. We're still having a viewing for the family. They're still having a chance to say goodbye. We're still having the mass, the music. It's. I can't stress enough how important that's been. So the hardest part, I suppose, in any funeral is when the coffin is lowered, and it doesn't matter whether it's COVID or it's 6 months ago or 10 years in the future. It's always going to be that hard on a family, and no virus will change that.
When are the plans to ease the restrictions regarding funerals, Michael?
Well, the current restrictions on attendance at the funerals is 10 people max, and we're trying to keep within that, but that's not always possible. An Irish 10, but it should be. We should all try as best we can. They're saying then that at the next phase 2, on the 8th of June, slightly larger numbers in attendance, but we're still restricted to immediate family and close friends, and they're not giving the maximum number yet. They're just saying it will be a maximum number, so maybe they might, maybe 20, 25, something like that, which would be probably more a fair number, because most people, have extended family, or, most people have 20. To be honest, the average size of funerals, realistically, of immediate family is probably 15 to 20 at the moment.
And then phase 3 will be another...
Phase 3, they're not changing. The next change is phase 4, and that's the 10th of July. And again, they're allowing small service, not just funerals, they're allowing baptisms to go back and small weddings to go back. But again, you're talking about 50 people, I suppose, and that's the 10th of July. But as I was saying earlier, that's what you have to do. And that's how it spread with some of these groups and, the example I was saying in America. But the same happened in France and Italy, because big social cultures, people, showing their support, and all it takes was a couple of people there, to be high risk or have it and not even know it.
Have you ever had any instances of people not obeying an instruction or saying, listen, please keep the numbers down, or has everybody been good?
Everyone's been very good. Everyone's very good. Sometimes you kind of walk in and there's a lot of people outside the church and you go, oh my, what are we going to do here? But in general, they leave the immediate family in, and if you ask them, look, we can't have any more in here. See, it depends on the size of the church as well. Some of the smaller churches, you have to be so strict, like Butlerstown or Ballybricken or some of those. But some of the bigger churches like the Folly and the Holy Family or the Cathedral, there's space there. There's room just to have that extra couple. But again, it's immediate family. Everyone else is happy to wait outside or just be seen.
To wait outside or just be seen. I want to thank Michael Thompson for access to his funeral parlour yesterday. I want to say thank you so much to him and his staff, and a special mention to all the other funeral directors around Waterford and the South East for what they've been doing during this time of crisis. A lot of people have been texting in about how professional everybody has been, how superbly supportive they have been. Texting, we buried my father 3 weeks ago. COVID-19 made it very challenging, but Michael Thompson and his team looked after us so well. We can't thank them enough for their support and advice at a very difficult time. That's from Karen Beglin, and many texts of that same ilk. So thank you so much for all your support, and well done to all the funeral directors. It is one of the reasons, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many others, why we have managed to keep COVID figures so low in Waterford. Stay with us. I'm going to talk to John Hayes from Ferrybank in a minute about face masks. Just a message in. Sheila sent a message. Damien, I know this is a bit of a long shot, but it's worth a try. I went for a swim in Ballymacaw on Monday evening around 8 o'clock, and unfortunately I lost my late grandmother's ring in the car park there. I was wondering if you could make an announcement, please, to see if anyone has come across it. It's a gold eternity ring. Thank you so much, Sheila. So that's Monday night. A gold eternity ring, the car park at Ballymacaw. If you've seen it, or if you've found it, or if you've any idea, please send us a text. We'll keep Sheila's number here at the radio station. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Damien. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. How are you keeping yourself?
Very, very busy, in fact.
Very busy.
Lots going on.
You're with the Ferrybank Community Group, and you're buying face masks in bulk and selling them individually to people in the area. Tell me about this, please.
Yeah, what happened was when Azuri announced that they were providing the masks, I rang them up to see, because I plugged them straight away on the Ferrybank Community Newsletter Facebook page, which I run for the last 7 years. And there was a great response to it. But a lot of people were asking, could we get them? And I rang Azuri, and at the time, they were only supplying to health workers. And I'd like to think that I was one of the people that pressured them into seriously considering making them available for the public. And I gathered that it was a great response. So what we did was, a lot of the people said that getting in 10 was just too many. And, some of them couldn't maybe possibly afford 49 euros of it, on social welfare or whatever. But then the majority of people were saying, look, I only need one, I need two, I need three, whatever. So what we did was we used some of the funds that we raised money over here, fundraising with a split the pot effort ongoing. So we used the funds to buy the masks from Azuri, and then people can just buy them at cost in one or two or three or whatever, and they're pre-booking them. So we're kind of ordering about 50 a week now, and it's going up steadily. And by all accounts, people are absolutely delighted with the product. It's fantastic. And it does exactly what it says on the tin. And we're delighted with the quality of it. And we'll keep helping people over here to avail of them as long as they want to get them, Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. And there's still, I know there's a lot of debate. I got a text in from a chap yesterday about reusable masks need to be dry cleaned on a daily basis and don't offer the same, protection as surgical or medical grade disposable masks. Are people just happy to get some kind of a mask, or are you telling them how to deal with these masks as they get them, John?
Yeah, well, all of the instructions are well defined and they're clearly outlined in the actual pack with each mask.
Excellent.
And I have to say, some of the people over here, they have underlying health issues, lung disease and whatever. And the feedback is that the masks are not interfering, they're not creating fluff, they're easy to wear, they can breathe through them easily. And most people are getting two. So they're using one, they're washing that in soapy water, they're steeping it in the boiling water for 5 minutes, and it's almost dry when you take it out and leave it steep. So they're easy to use, they're definitely protection. And I think that they provide, some sort of sense of security for people when they're going out into a crowded area. And I think it's going to be very important,
Yeah. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, John, what's the best way? Through Facebook or give a phone call, or what do you think?
Yeah, you can give my number out. I'm happy with that. I think you might have a 086 258 3456.
Okay.
Or they can go on to the Ferrybank Community Newsletter Facebook page and just private message me there and I'll organise it for them.
Lovely. 086 258 3456. John, congratulations. Well done, and it's a really good initiative. Fair play to you.
No problem. And hopefully, if there are other communities around, I know a few people mentioned it yesterday, that they, so maybe some other community groups might run with that, but it's working fine and everybody's happy with it. Super.
Well done. John, continued success, okay?
Thank you.
Thanks very much, John. Appreciate it. John Hayes there. Ferrybank Community Group, 086 258 3456. A caller rang to say about an article in the Irish Mirror yesterday where large crowds of 150 people attended a funeral of two brothers in Cork on Monday, where the Gardaí were directing the traffic. Why was this allowed when everyone else has to endure the heartache of funerals with just immediate family? A number of people raising that through text messages as well. A woman phoned in to say, what's the difference in a cost of a funeral now without the trimmings because of COVID and the cost of it was beforehand? I actually don't know. It's one of the things we didn't deal with yesterday. I want to say a special 89th birthday to Granny May Prendergast from Lismore. May is living alone and has been isolating for the last few months. You are so missed very much by all your 37 grandchildren. May is a big fan of the Deise hurling team and loves listening to the Big Match Live with Kieran O'Connor. And that is from all your relatives. Lots of love today, and please God, we'll give you a big celebration for your 90th next year, says these texters. And other people texting in. Caroline Higgins, working at UHW, love from all the family, happy birthday. People texting also about that vote in the Dáil regarding not voting for David Cullinane shows the lack of unity among politicians in Waterford, says Pa, which is disappointing. Another texter, any decision made on the grass growing to cut the estates? They're all overgrown. Went for a walk yesterday down around Abbeyside. The park looked amazing, but the residents putting up painting, tidying up the houses, but the grass needs to be cut. Thank you, Damien. Loving the show. We're going to talk about Irish Water next. Now, people texting about some businesses that may have opened already. Is there some around the Ardkeen area? Contractors working? Should they be working now? Should they be waiting until Monday? And here's a simple little text. A bird hit my window. Now is a damaged wing in the back garden. Is there anyone can give me advice or anybody can pick it up and help me with it? We're not going to talk about birds and foul matters to Brian O'Leary. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Damien.
We won't talk about birds injured in the garden, but we will talk about watering the garden. Now we're going to talk about the significant increase in domestic water usage. Brian, you're with Irish Water. Thank you for joining us. It's good to talk to you. Tell me, please, are we going to have a drought?
Okay, good morning again, David, and good morning to your listeners. I suppose, look, the water conservation notice we've gone out with, just to give a bit of context for it, really, it's new domestic metering data which has shown that since the lockdown in mid-March, households are on average using an additional 24 litres for every person per day in that house, which equates to about a 20% increase from February figures. And while I suppose there has been some offset from reduced non-domestic demand due to the closures of the many businesses, the temporary closures of many businesses and bars and restaurants, our water supplies are under pressure. As you know, domestic or household demand would typically make up 2/3 of the overall demand. So our plants are operating at max capacity, so they are coming under a little bit of pressure. And in addition to that, we have had a very dry spell of weather, which I suppose has helped to keep us all a little bit sane too. But the forecast for the next month or so indicates that this is likely to continue. So that impacts on things in two ways. In terms of groundwater levels and river flows will be down, and also demand tends to go up during these dry spells. So for us, and the key message we're trying to put out there is that we want to maintain supplies for hand washing and cleaning in line with the government and the health expert advice, but we'd like people really to have a look at the non-essential use. Okay,
so you're kind of trying to prevent this, and you're putting this message out now as opposed to if it does happen. And I can see where you're coming from. Like, you're the regional operations lead. I was looking at the rainfall figures around the south of the country, and they are quite dramatically down. Are we looking at, if this continues, something close to what we may have had a couple of years ago?
Again, we are, like I suppose ourselves with our partners in the local authority, we are monitoring this, and you're quite correct. The Met Office stats would show that the March-April rainfall figures are down at less than 40% of the average, and less than the 2018 figures. Now, their impacts are, they're beginning to crop up at the moment. It is being monitored, and in general, things are okay at the moment, but there are one or two areas that it is popping up. And even within County Waterford, again, I suppose schemes where we would have seen a bit of pressure in the past are coming on the radar already. The Fuse scheme, again, we dropped some water conservation notice advice to the customers on that scheme about 2 weeks ago, that the groundwater levels in the borehole were beginning to drop off. So, yeah, we are beginning to see the signs of it. At the moment, we're not there. So this is really a preemptive strike, really. We want to get people to just think about, the non-essential use. But obviously, the key message is, look, maintain the hand washing and the cleaning in lining with the government health expert advice.
Yeah, there is, and I was listening to Irish Water over the last few days talking about this, and obviously water usage is up in houses, people staying at home, and then you have savings that may be made in factories and businesses that are closed, so you might have some sort of an offshot on that. And then you've obviously still got leaks and water still being lost through leaks. Has that...
correct.
Tell us about the figures there.
Yeah, you're correct, Damien. And I suppose if you think about, we'll say a lot of the rural schemes in Waterford, where you mightn't, where people during the day would typically be in the urban centres maybe for work, and they wouldn't be spending as much time at home. You're not seeing that offset in those rural schemes of reduced non-domestic use, but you are seeing a big pickup on the domestic side. So they're the schemes I suppose we'd be a little bit worried about in the immediate term. In terms of leak repairs, yes, again, ourselves and the local authority, our partners, we are on the ground doing everything we can to monitor and manage supply distribution across the county. And again, we're fixing leaks to ensure water services are maintained. Again, we're cognizant of the fact that there is this national response to avoid unnecessary work. So we have been prioritising the large burst repairs and anything that's impacting on service. But we will be picking up now on the smaller leaks as well, continuing to keep on top of those. On a lot of the smaller schemes, we would have been doing that anyway, because, again, on these smaller schemes, it doesn't take a whole lot for a scheme to get into trouble. So, again, that's been well managed by ourselves and the local authority, our local authority partners. Yeah, it's still, and John has phoned in to say, it's still one of those perennial questions, I suppose, Brian. The idea that we might get 9 or 10 months of rain, and fairly, I know there's been changes in climate, but in general we still get a fair bit of rain, and then we get a few weeks of good weather or a month of good weather, and we then start talking about water shortages. Is there any way we can be better prepared, do you think? Again, I suppose it goes back to the infrastructure that we operate. We don't have large, impoundments across. We'll take Waterford as an example. Yeah. Okay, there is an impoundment which is part of the supply for the Waterford City scheme, but for pretty much every other scheme in the county, there aren't any impoundments where you can, gather rainfall and store it up during the wet months to have it for dry. You're typically relying on boreholes that pump into reservoirs. Reservoirs will only typically have a day's storage where you have them. So there isn't that ability to store up water, and that you're talking multi-millions and millions of investment to get to that kind of a level, Okay. We've a lot to talk about on this again. We'll come back to you, Brian. I appreciate you coming and talking to us this morning, okay? Okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks very much. Brian O'Leary there, Regional Operations Lead with Irish Water. A number of texts and comments coming in. Council workers who were contracted to Irish Water have been working since the lockdown started, wondering about how much health and safety issues they were dealt with Irish Water and advising them, says this texter. Cathy Desmond is going to be talking to us in a second about ukuleles. Firstly, some text. Good morning, Damien. There was a lot of guards outside of University Hospital Waterford all day and night yesterday. Any idea what it was about? Joe has texted in to say hundreds of gallons of water flowed down Thomas's Hill for 2 months earlier this year. Despite numerous calls to fix it, it wasn't fixed, or it took a long while for it to get fixed. A lady in Ballygunner rang to say 2 weeks ago she rang about someone power hosing a patio, and last night another person washing the drive. Some people don't seem to be getting the message. And about the bird out in the back garden with a broken wing, Joe has texted in about a man by the name of Joe Pigeon. He's supposed to be great with birds. He lives in Congress Place. He's a lovely man. I wonder is his name really Joe Pigeon? I don't know. We'll find out. Now, Cathy, good morning. How's it going?
Good morning, Damien. Great.
Good.
I'm out here in Tramore, and the sun's not shining, but it's a lovely day.
A lovely day. Tramore Ukelele Group, you're one of the founders. You're a classically trained violinist and a violin teacher with WAMA. Tell me about this initiative with ukuleles, please.
Well, Damien, just when, the lockdown happened, I was sort of very busy, and I was kind of teaching ukulele in schools, and I had just started a group over in Carbally, and I was sort of anxious to kind of continue kind of reaching out and connecting with people. And then Niall Breslin, announced his initiative of giving away 200 ukuleles to cocooners. And I was sitting there with my kind of school bag of ukuleles, and I thought, well, rather than sort of sitting going kind of rusty in my shed, they could be out and in people's hands and get people enjoying them, and it's never been a better time to learn a musical instrument.
Yeah, we had a bit of a joke with the lads in Beat this morning about ukuleles, and for some people ukuleles can be a little bit annoying, and for others they just have a beautiful sound. What's your thought on the ukulele as an instrument?
Well, ukulele annoying? Damien, I did hear you suggest that earlier, and I was appalled. Well, the thing about a ukulele, as opposed to a violin, it's very, very easy to play. Anybody really in sort of 20 minutes could nearly learn 3 chords and be strumming away, kind of instantly. Whereas it's a very quick and accessible kind of way into kind of learning an instrument. They're gentle, whereas you couldn't have 20 guitars kind of around a table. It would make quite a big kind of racket. Whereas, a lot of ukuleles doesn't make a very kind of loud, kind of aggressive sound. They're gentle little instruments, And I don't think, I don't know any class that I've ever been in that the kids' faces don't light up when they see them. I've never had anybody not take to it.
Yeah. Julie managed to get the little bit of the ukulele orchestra playing the good, the bad and the ugly.
Yeah, well, the ukulele orchestra of Great Britain coming to Waterford is what started my interest. And they came in 2007, and it was pouring, and they had to kind of move their gig into the Tower Hotel. But it was a fantastic gig. And they came back in 2013, and I bought my first ukulele because they gave a workshop in Central Hall. And I still use that workshop and the notes that they gave that day in my beginning sessions. And it was great fun, and we all went into Jordan's afterwards with the ukulele orchestra, Great Britain at the point. So it was that was what got me going. In 2013, I think they came.
And I know you're giving the free tutorials and helping people learn through the pandemic. Do you think there's going to be sort of a plethora of ukulele players now coming out of the pandemic?
A plethora of ukulele players, a perfect word. I certainly hope so, Damien. And that's right. My hope is that, once people have kind of got their hands on one, they won't want to let it down. And it's worth saying all my ukuleles went very quickly, but, we have fantastic local suppliers. And if you didn't get your hands on one, John Palmer is, sending out ukuleles, and he's well stocked up, and he'll sort you out with one if you didn't get your hands on one of the 20. And as I say, I put up 6 ukulele tutorials then to kind of help people to get going with it. And anybody can access those there. You'll find them through the Tramore Ukulele Group Facebook page.
Yeah, we're getting a few nice texts in. Best wishes to Kathy from the Sure Ukulele Strummers. And that's from Patricia. And Anna has texted in, my granddaughter Hannah McNamara in Lismore loves playing the ukulele. So is there kind of a little secret sect of ukulele admirers?
Well, there's certainly a kind of a ground swell of, like the groups are popping up everywhere now. Patricia White with her Sure Ukulele Strummers, they're very active there in Waterford City. Sarah Jane Hanson, I think, in the Vintage Parlour has a ukuleles kind of session. And it's and no matter where you go in the world, there'll be a ukulele club, and I don't think they'll all be very happy to see somebody coming in, and as long as you can play a handful of chords, you can sit in anywhere and play along.
You do a lot.
Definitely, I think there's definitely a kind of a. I think they were very popular in English schools, whole class tuition, and I think that sort of prompted a lot of interest in education circles because it's a very, as I say, very accessible way into playing an instrument.
I think you're right there. Yeah, my daughter plays a little bit of it, and this idea of it being an easy way in and being a sort of a stepping stone is important. I know you do a lot of storytelling in libraries as well and contribute to the Irish Examiner on the arts. There has been a lot of people that have tried out different artistic sort of ventures, either a bit of writing or a bit more reading and musical instruments in the last few months. Hopefully, I suppose the main thing, Kathy, would be that if anybody's tried out anything like that, to try and keep it going.
Absolutely. Well, I would say putting a little bit of time aside and getting into, like anything, it's a habit, getting into a little bit of a routine. And, even 10 minutes a day, you will make progress. And even aside from the ukulele, my local newsagent has loads of tin whistles in stock, that if the ukulele's not for you, pick up something else and give it a go. And I don't think there's ever been a better time. And let's hope when it's all over that we'll all get together and I'm looking forward to going back. I'm missing my students terribly. I'm sort of putting out sort of YouTube violin tutorials as well, but I'm really looking forward to getting back into the class and resuming the classes. And I'm hoping that we will have a great big ukulele jam in Tramore, and there'll be lots more people out there who maybe have taken up the instrument in the meantime, and we'll all have a good old time.
Ah, lovely. Beautifully said. Kathy, thanks so much. Lovely to talk to you.
Lovely to talk to you. Thank you, Damien.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Kathy. Kathy Desmond there, music teacher and founder of the Tramore Ukulele Group. Number of people texted in. That man who looks after birds and will mind birds or nurse them back to health. His name is Joe Flynn. He lives in Congress Place, said Joan. Another texter, I love listening to this lady Jane in Jordan's playing violin for booze, blaz and banter every October at the Imagine Festival. Excellent piece this morning with Michael Thompson. Dignified and professional. Stay safe. There's water constantly flowing down Bunkers Hill, said another texter, and it has to be looked at. This idea of a water shortage in the country when it rains for almost 10 out of 12 months of rain is absolute bull, said another texter. Another person, Martin in Ferrybank, says if people keep the water they drain off from their vegetables after cooking, they can put it on their plants. It can be full of nutrients, which is great for the plants, especially water from potatoes. Thank you, everybody, for your texts and comments. Another person asking, can we follow up, please, on the vote regarding Matt and Mary voting against David in the next few days? We certainly will. No problem whatsoever. Thank you, everybody, for your texts and comments. Thank you, Julie, for producing. Andy is up next. If we didn't get to any of your texts and comments this morning, apologies, and we'll try and deal with a lot more matters tomorrow besides. Thank you very much to Sean O'Rourke and to Brian Dobson and to Fergal Keane for their contributions as well. Have a great day, folks. Stay safe.